This is Seymour Rocks reporting from Down Under. I just want to comment very briefly on what I consider to be kind of one of the more important videos put out by Guy McPherson. I've known that for quite a number of years he would like to have had access to talk to some of the scientists, um, but that didn't seem to have happened until recently. But this is highly significant because Guy was able to talk to Dr. Wieslaw Maslowski, who's a Polish scientist but now based in the United States. He was the co-author of a seminal work that Guy has always pointed to and has regarded as being hugely important, and which he quotes often. And that was really saying, this was published in May 2012 for the annual review of Earth and Planetary Sciences, and it projected that the sea ice in the Arctic could be gone by 2016, plus or minus 2 years. So we're now in 2019, and that brought about this article by Nafaz Ahmed, which was published in the back in 2012 in the Guardian. The U.S. Navy predicts summer ice-free Arctic by 2016. Is conventional modeling out of pace with speed and abruptness of global warming?
The Arctic system, Arctic climate system. Currently, we're not making predictions for multi-years or decades. We have made progress to comfortably argue that we can provide reasonable and improved predictions for what we call intra-annual predictions, more than 1 month, less than 12 months. Currently, we're at 6 months, mainly because those type of predictions are available, 6-month predictions are available from global climate models.
Mm-hmm. So tell us a little bit about that, your current 6 months projection. We're here in mid-April, so May, June, July, August, September, October. What does the information indicate for 6 months out?
So 6 months out for September, currently we're not going to lose ice in summer below 1 million. However,
he continues,
I'm happy to be wrong, that we may still have some ice available for some years. Going back to that paper that you referred to, 2012 paper, that we projected that ice may disappear around 2016 plus minus 3 years. The main thing is that one of the reasons for making that projection was to make people aware that projections based on the satellite records and two-dimensional ice extent projections are possibly too conservative, and we shouldn't be feeling so comfortable with the rate of declining sea ice based on the satellite record, because it might be declining much faster. On the other hand, that paper also suggested that projections from global climate models might be way too conservative as well, which has been demonstrated by comparison with the satellite two-dimensional ice extent and ice area, verifying the satellite record of the past several decades and the model representation of that time period, showing that the models, global climate models and Earth system models, are too conservative, representing those several decades of the satellite records.
12 were based on a shorter time period, and that the rate of change had slightly sort of flattened out from what was projected. But essentially, he's sticking to the same scenario, and he's really confirming, I think, in this interview, everything that Guy has said and continues to say. And one of the important things is that he's saying that the decline or the disappearance of ice could be very abrupt. It could just literally go off a cliff as we reach a certain threshold. And he talks quite a lot about sea ice extent and its measurement and its inadequacy to project the rate of change versus sea ice thickness or volume. So just listen to this next segment.
The global climate models and involving satellite evaluation, satellite observational record, are focusing on comparing the accuracy of models representing ice area, and they're not focusing or not necessarily evaluating the reality of model simulation of ice thickness distribution and rate of change of volume. We have results in our own simulations from our regional model where we can show that for the same ice area, two different realization of the same model with slightly tweaked physics, parameter space of something that the models not resolve because of their coarse grid resolution. And we can change the parameter in one or two or three different processes, and we can have, for the same area in two experiments, we can have no ice. Well, we can have very realistic sea ice thickness, and we can have 3 times more ice thickness for the same ice area in the two experiments. So the volume could be, 2-3 times less in two experiments for the same ice area. So from that perspective, we still argue that focusing on the satellite record on the two-dimensional space is not sufficient constraint to provide input or insight on how quickly the ice has been disappearing and how quickly it may disappear.
So he goes on to say that up till now, projections involving satellite observations have been of the ice area, and this is what we get quoted, and has not looked at volume or thickness, and that focusing on the two-dimensional model is not sufficient to give us an insight into the rate of disappearance. He also describes some new satellites that have been launched, which are likely to give us more insight into this process, and that the information from this has not been made public yet.
Know that volume is far more important than the surficial layer.
By basic law of physics, isostasy, roughly 10 or 15% ice is floating above the surface, which what we can see from the space from the satellites, and the remaining 85-90% is actually floating below, submerged below the surface water. So if we see changes in the ice area, those could be changes related to thin ice declining in area, but we're not actually seeing the change from satellites in the thickness, with some caveat, because we have some satellites now that can provide some estimates of ice thickness. Currently, there is a European Space Agency satellite called Cryosat-2 flying on in the polar orbit, and they provide some estimates of what is called freeboard, ice freeboard. They measure the height of ice above sea level. And there's some issues in providing accurate estimates of this ice freeboard because of the snow cover, because of the loading of snow, because of the ice and snow density relative to the water density and so forth. But there are some estimates of the ice thickness, Arctic-wide ice thickness from the Cryosat-2. And as of this year, I think it was actually ISA-2, the NASA ISA-2 was launched late last year, and I've seen early results from ISA-2, which are also providing framework measurements, but those have fewer uncertainty comparing to Cryosat, European satellite, and we're yet to get the public access to this data set from ISA-2. The main thing is that part of the reason those satellites are out there, and that some people in the science community like myself have pointed out that looking at the ice area only is not sufficient, and we have to have a better understanding of changes in the ice thickness and the total ice volume. You cannot understand the changes in the media like ice, sea ice, if you only look in the two-dimensional space. You have to understand the changes, rate of changes in the three-dimensional space.
Maslowski has lots of other insights into the possible change. He goes beyond the simple thing of loss of albedo and talks about the absorption of going, if I've got it correctly, from 10% absorption with sea ice to when it's disappeared to 90% absorption, and everything that we can expect from that. So I see this not as really good news, even though we, according to his 6 monthly projections, we're not going to see a complete fall off of sea ice, but things are looking very, very dire. And I think that confirms for me the need and the importance of citizen scientists, people who are just carefully observing things on a day-by-day, week-by-week basis to identify changes, such as what Margot and I identified last year. It was a large uptick in the methane emissions in the area. And also, there may be other aspects of this that are being overlooked by the science community, most of which is highly conservative. Dr. Maslowski obviously doesn't fall into that category. He is a realist, and he's looking at how things really are. So I'll leave that, and I hope that you will be motivated to listen very carefully to the entire interview, which I'll leave in the description below. And yeah, so that's basically it. So this is Seymour Rocks reporting from Down Under. Thank you.